Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Campus Consortium's EdTalks webinar series. Our presenters for today's session are Leila Sitara, Head of School from Nurul Iman School, Oxmara Mohammed, Head of Technology from Nurul Iman School, Jorge Martinez, Director of Instructional Information Technology from Valley View Independent School District, and Dr. Carl Horvath, President at Campus Consortium. We'll take questions at the end of today's presentation. Please enter your questions into the chat box or question pane in your Zoom control panel. Without further ado, please allow me to present Leila Sitara, Oxmara Mohammed, Jorge Martinez, and Dr. Carl Horvath. Over to you, Carl.
Thank you, Lily. Much appreciated. And welcome to everybody that's joining us today for our EdTalk webinar. This month, we are going to be talking to some panelists from K-12 education. But one thing to know is that really a lot of our discussions in our monthly webinar EdTalks are geared for education in general, whether it's higher education or K-12 education. And today we'll talk about some of the challenges specifically for K-12 school districts. I want to, welcome everyone who's attended. Just wanted to kind of give a shout out to some of the attendees we have today, which is a cross section between K-12 attendees as well as higher education, and even a few vendors who have joined us. We have Columbia University in attendance, the Art Education University, University of Buffalo, University of Michigan. We also have St. Stephen's Episcopal School and a few other K through 12 schools. We also have Fisher Identity who's joined us. Hello. And thank you all for tuning in today. This is our monthly web Ed Talk for Campus Consortium. So thanks for joining. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the grants that we've awarded to some of these to some of the schools that will be joining us today and other K-12s. We are known at Campus Consortium for supporting higher education in the past, and we've really with the pandemic and COVID-related issues. So many people in March of 2020 had to move online. And I mean, everybody across at least the US and other countries. And certainly it was quite a challenge in terms of technology to provide this support for some of these institutions. And what was clearly shown in the K through 12 sector is that sometimes they didn't have all the resources they needed to be able to get into this space. And we'll hear some of those challenges today. Here's a few of the schools that we've been able to work with recently and provide support. A little bit about Campus Consortium, originally founded in 2003, has taken quite a bit of many changes over the years and really addressed, as I said, and focused in the higher education space. More recently, in the past year, we have been significantly moving into all of education, supporting all of education, mostly around technology, both making connections between institutions that have common technology challenges, issues, or problems, and also helping them not reinvent the wheel every time. So we do a lot of sharing and networking. We do educational webinars such as this. We do research reports. We also provide some in-kind financial assistance with some of our educational technology partners. So thank you everyone for joining, and here's a couple of these in-kind grants I had mentioned that are currently available to August 6th if you're interested, and you'll hear a little bit about those. That's not the focus of this presentation, but it is some of the solutions that we can provide to help your institution or your school. Special thanks to our sponsors for today, which is two educational technology partners we work with, Oculus IT and quick launch. And if you're a vendor that's joined us on our webinar, we would like to work with you and partner with you. So please reach out to us, and let's have a discussion about that to see what value and support that you could bring our education members. I'd like to start out with just a short poll, and if the audience could please respond to this. We'll just have this up for about 30 seconds, and we would like to know what issues limit the use of technology in your school. Funding, expertise, or access. And if you could just take the next 20 or 30 seconds to answer that, we'll display the results and just get a sense from the audience where everyone is in terms of the challenges that you're facing today. I'd like to just kind of start out with an overview about rethinking how school works. I stated earlier that everyone has had challenges significantly because of the pandemic, but before that, education has really had a tough time at times keeping up with technology because of the cost and the expertise and the time that it takes to manage technology. So technology really needs to change and adapt to be usable for all education institutions. The other thing is the digital divide and the lack of equity in technology availability, not just to people, but certainly to organizations. And this includes access to the internet, basic access that some of us may take for granted because it's so readily available, either at our workplace or at our homes. Some people have no access depending on their location. Here's the results of the last poll. What issues limit the use of technology in your school? It looks like a even 50-50 between funding and expertise currently, and that often is the challenge, and that's really the goal of Campus Consortium, is to try to overcome these challenges. It may be easy for a for-profit to go out there and invest in technology and invest in the support. Not so much the case for nonprofits. They often have programs that support the organization themselves, and they're really not in it to make money or to be accountable to shareholders. And so it's that much more important to provide affordable technology to our education members and others that's also easy to manage, because staffing is also another issue. So trend educators have been talking about is really this kind of interdisciplinary, interactive, student-driven approach by incorporating technology and really empowering teachers and faculty and administration in schools to be competitive and much more relevant in these challenging times. So some of the trends that we have been looking at, and some of this is from the New Media Consortium and the Consortium for School Networking, redesigning of learning spaces, collaborative social learning spaces. So very important to have, as more and more of our students are communicating online, there's so many of the most current generations that do everything online, from healthcare to retail to taking care of their banking and finances, as well as entertainment and socialization. These are generations that are steeped in technology experience and in these environments. And so as institutions, we need to really try to offer these similar environments to our students who are very familiar with these technology. And so to do that does require investment and support. And that is something that we'll talk a little bit more about today. Personalized learning, of course, we talked about empowering our students and our teachers. Automating processes, very important. Especially the pandemic showed that the paper form isn't always the way to go these days. And so many of us had to make online forms in so many different ways. And not just to create and capture a request from somebody, but to process it within your institution. Student-teacher access, and of course, improved communication. A lot of challenges. I'm sure you'll hear some of the challenges from our panelists today. is how do we create these authentic learning experiences by using technology and rethinking how, as teachers, we teach students. And certainly number three, very big one, is the digital equity and access gap. There's digitalinclusion.org that Campus Consortium is a member of, and we are keeping up to date with the news lately about the investment, the technology infrastructure investment by the current administration. Much of that money, billions, will be spent on digital equity, meaning providing access to students and parents, neighborhoods, communities that do not have access now. And this allows education to leverage the power of technology and to reach every student. Funding and affordability, and of course, expertise and maintenance are always concerns. How do you run a cloud-based enterprise system in your institution when you are a person, a leader that for your institution has three separate and distinct roles? So I'd like to introduce our first speaker to start talking about some of these issues. And our first speaker is Leila Shatara. She is head of school at Nuliman School, and Leila served in leadership positions in public and Islamic schools for 28 years. She currently serves as head of Nuliman School and president of the Council of Islamic Schools in North America. She is a PhD candidate in the Department of Education Leadership and Research Methodology at FAU, and she has worked with Islamic schools through their accreditation attainment and serves on accreditation teams with Cognia. Ms. Shatara has presented at the ISNA Education Forum for 8 years on topics ranging from effective leadership and data-driven decision-making to teacher evaluation and spiritual development. She's also a published researcher and has presented at the University Council for Education Administration Conference, the American Education Research Association Conference, and the Florida Educational Research Association. Leila, welcome to the EdTalk webinar, and I welcome you to introduce and talk a little bit about the school that you head, and then also talk to our attendees about some of the challenges you faced and how you plan to overcome them.
Thank you, Carl. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for having us at this webinar to share some of our experiences. And we want to thank Campus Consortium for the grant that we received that's really going to help us streamline our processes. And our Director of IT will talk a little bit about those specifics later. I am head of school at a non-public school in Central New Jersey. We have 540 students coming in this year. And we serve students from pre-K through 12th grade. So it is a wide range and very different needs and very different divisions. And one of the challenges for our technology needs as well. So we are going into our 29th year of service to students in our community. And of course, like many, or actually the rest of the world, I think this pandemic in March 2020 really kind of propelled us into a new stage when it comes to technology, and everyone was forced to look at things a little bit differently. So I don't know if we can go to the next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about perception of technology, I think, which has changed a great deal for us in education. Not for me in particular. I think we always valued and understood that technology was integral and essential, but I think for a very long time in K-12, technology was seen as something we might integrate here and there. Let's add a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but never really saw it in this wider perception, wider space that we needed. And I think we were a little bit behind. I know for our school, we were about a decade behind before the pandemic, and we were kind of moving towards this strategic plan of advancing our technology, but it was moving very slowly. And then the pandemic, it was like, boom, you have to have it in place. And it was a very difficult it's switch from platforms. Our team, and I think, as Carl mentioned, the need for funding, expertise, and access. For us, we're grateful we didn't have much of an access issue, but we definitely had lack of funding. And the IT team is very small and limited. And so that switch in March of 2020, where universities clicked a button, basically, I think, I'm sure it was more than that, but it was much easier for them than it was for us. And we saw large school districts around the country really, students really suffered because of that. For us, it took Ms. Oxmera and her team working around the clock. I think we probably did 18-hour days trying to move over. I don't know that we slept much at all in those first weeks and months, trying to make sure that everything was in place. And it shouldn't have taken a pandemic to really have us do that. It should have been something that was already in place. And I think our students suffered this past year across the country. And so the perception that technology is kind of a side note really needed to change, and this forced us to do that. So we're grateful that we're able to now provide school-wide systems, and I think the consortium is going to help us a great deal with that single sign-on. We needed to streamline parent, student, and teacher experiences. There were so many different programs and applications that we had for different purposes and different roles, and teachers had to access things in all kinds of different places. And so we're really looking for a single sign-on where you just go into one system and you have access to all the resources that you need. And we're really hoping that that will really make things a lot easier for all our stakeholders. In technology, I think when parents are happy with the way that the ease of access, it makes it easier for us to partner with them. And when we moved to online learning, the past year and a half, whether it was completely remote or hybrid, we needed parents to feel comfortable with the systems in place. And that took a little bit of a learning curve, because parents became true partners. They had to do everything at home, while the teachers kind of facilitated from their homes. And so that school-wide systems were an absolute necessity. And we, as a small school, were able to provide live remote learning the day we closed. We closed on I think it was a Thursday we started remote learning. We were live that morning. Our turnaround time was literally overnight. But a lot of schools in K-12 were not able to do that. Large, massive school districts were not able to do that. And I think one of the things, the problems is this perception of what technology means for K-12. And it directly correlates to student achievement, and having them be able to access and have that support from home, and be able to see the ease in being able to access, whether it was their Zoom accounts or their Google Classrooms or textbooks. They needed to be able to easily access those resources, and that took a lot of effort to get that done. If we can go to the next slide, please. I think, again, like I just mentioned, the technology experience. We know that in the beginning of going remote, we had a lot of questions about why there were so many passwords, so many things online. There were different applications for different courses, different textbooks. And it was challenging for our students and our parents, and it was a major learning curve for our teachers. And I think we need to move to a space where K-12 uses technology differently, but again, there's the limitation of the funding, which, for us in particular, whenever we were looking at budgeting, we kind of always put technology needs at the bottom. right? We always moved it to the bottom because it was something we could wait to do later, or we'll just put a little bit in technology this year and we'll do it. And I think we really need to move away from that. And in our policies, maybe, our lawmakers and where they place funding has really shifted. But now, where do the experts come from? And are they there? We were blessed to have Oxy, and I think I want to give a shout out to her family team, because her husband is IT and her son is IT. So they also voluntarily worked for us through the pandemic and put in many hours, because we didn't have the experts. She has a very small staff. And I think her household literally ran our remote learning from the Muhammad household. So, and it just goes, again, it reinforces that we need experts in K-12, and we need to be able to pay them, and we need to be able to fund the resources that we need. And I see that the shift with Campus Consortium to K-12, I would love to see the funding expanded, and that you're able to help many more schools and districts around the country. It is such a desperate need. We should not have allowed the learning gaps and the holes that we failed our kids this past year as a country, and it was directly linked to not having the technology in place. So it should now propel us into a new phase of, we have to have this in place, right? And I'm hoping that this upcoming year will look different. And one of the things that, as far as student experience and parent experience, especially through the pandemic, we were dealing with health issues, we were dealing with financial issues. The last thing we needed our parents and students to worry about is, how do we access our classroom, or how do we access resources? And so adding this layer of anxiety is something we have control over. We don't have control over the things that are happening with the health and out there in society, but we at minimum had control over what we do with our technological resources. And so I think this is a place where we can put our energy and effort and our funding to alleviate that aspect of anxiety and stress for our students and parents, and so that it helps them with their social emotional needs. And of course, that directly correlates to their ability to function in the classroom and to focus and to really try to learn. Another aspect for us, and I'm really looking forward to being able to use this in this upcoming year, is allowing our school and teachers to really use technology to differentiate learning and personalize learning. Imagine in a classroom where, everyone has their Chromebooks or their iPads, and we have the resources online, rather than having a teacher teach, all 20 or 25 students, which we know is going to have to change. The differentiated instruction has to be implemented, especially with learning gaps. This past year, instruction has to be personalized. You can have students doing their own thing on their own iPad or Chromebook or laptop, while the teacher's working with a small group. Those small group sessions and centers can now really shift to making technology the partner in the classroom rather than a side note. This is something we can, it even may replace a teacher assistant or a co-teacher, because students can really do this on their own, and they are already in that space. They're much more advanced than we are when it comes to using technology. Let's have them use it in effective, meaningful ways, rather than just TikTok, which we may have to use TikTok to move our education forward soon as well. So that's another aspect that I think we really need to focus on, is personalizing learning in the classroom with the use of technology. And then finally, something that's really kind of really always been important for me is using data to really drive our decisions about student learning and the decision making in our school. With the use of programs and apps, we can have that data at our fingertips and generate our reports and analyze that data and look at where is student achievement, where are the gaps, what are the things that we need to do to make sure that all students are moving forward. And I think being able to use that technology is really, really important for us moving forward. So that and you can't make decisions in a vacuum. and being able to pull whatever teachers are giving us anecdotally and whatever the data says will really help us fill the learning gaps, provide inclusion, and provide special needs at a different level than we have in the past. Next slide, please. The third aspect that I really wanted to talk about is Ms. Oxmer and I are really good friends, and that's really important. We get along great. There's a synergy. And I think what's happened historically is that school leadership, the executive decision makers, were making decisions in a vacuum and not really talking to the IT people. And I actually made this mistake a couple of times where I would meet with my leadership team, my division heads, and other academic leaders in the school. And we would make plans, strategic plans, long-term plans, and set goals. And then I'd go back to Oxy and I say, this is what we're going to do. And she'd say, you can't do that. And I'd say, why can't I do that? She'd say, because, and she'd give me a laundry list of all the reasons I couldn't do what we planned, because there's an IT aspect to everything. And so I learned very quickly. I'm a quick learner, as I hope Ms. Oxmer will say. I learned very quickly that I needed IT involved in our meetings, in our conversations. We needed her to explain to us what the other side entailed when we were making these decisions. And so that's been a major change for us in the way that we do things. I'm learning a lot more about technology. She's learning a lot more about instruction and academics. And we've really had to become really strong partners in the way that we work, in the way that we perceive our roles. And I think that that's an aspect, and I'm pretty sure that in wider school districts and bigger schools, this may be an area that's missing. I don't know how often school principals sit with their IT person when they're doing strategic planning, when they're making decisions about textbooks. When we decide what textbook companies we go with, we have to check with Ms. Oxy. Is this going to be, are we going to be able to integrate their online resources with our platforms? And that was problematic for us. It caused some major problems for us when we were transitioning, because we had not checked with the IT department when we made decisions. So I think this is really critical for school leadership to really change the way that we do things when it comes to our decisions, our strategic planning, and not missing the aspect of what the IT does in the background. So technology becomes a partner in education, and they support the teachers and the leadership rather than a barrier to access, which was what we were finding. And again, with this pandemic, we're really not sure what's happening, you know, in the next few months. We're going to open our schools. We're going to pray that everything goes well. And then we don't know when flu season hits, when winter comes, what will happen. So again, it's another year of planning for in-person learning, hybrid learning, online learning. Will we have to close our schools? Will we have to, you know, shift to 50% capacity? So we have to be ready with our platforms, with our resources in a moment's notice. And I think this has forced us to really, our vision of technology and what it looks like and how we use it moving forward has to change. I'm not sure why K-12 has been so far behind with our kids constantly online. Our children are online all the time. Everything they do is online, but we were still teaching the traditional way that we've been doing for the past 100 years, and really just very slowly integrating technology. I think we need to catch up with our kids and move in that atmosphere with them, or that stratosphere, wherever they are. It's hard to keep up with them. But I think one of the main areas is that we really have to better understand the benefits of technology and how we can use it to really move our students forward in their achievement and learning, and not see it as a side note. It really is integral to their learning, and I'm hoping that we can do a better job. And I appreciate that Campus Consortium recognizes the need to really support K-12 schools in that aspect. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them here.
Well, thank you very, very much. A lot of insight there. I have to say that right on point, your points are well taken. Number one, the pandemic did really catch a lot of us off guard. That was definitely a difficult time. But the second point, before I get to the second point, I'd like to kind of roll out the next poll question, please, and have folks please answer over the next 30 seconds while we finish up this part of the presentation. If your school has access to affordable and easy to manage technology systems, who would it benefit? Students, parents, faculty, staff, or all of the above? Just take the next 30 seconds or so, audience, please, attendees, please participate and let us know from your perspective what you think about that question. But just kind of shifting back to, you made a great point about the pandemic really caught us off guard, being behind. I kind of highlighted that early on, for-profits have the capital to invest and also maintain and sustain their technology investments, whereas nonprofits, and especially, we said higher eds to a point, but even more so K-12s. And, that's much more about in-person experience in those formative years, I would imagine too. And so when you are forced out of the physical space and into a online space, how do you replicate that same mission, that same feeling, that same connection through learning and what the institution itself represents? I mean, there's so many aspects to really trying to replicate that in a virtual environment. And as you mentioned, there are, this next year is uncertain. The other point that you made was, and this is not exclusive to K-12. In higher education too, technology is not always included at, the seat at the table, included in the room, at the project meeting. It's an afterthought sometimes. And these are institutions which may look at technology as a utility rather than a strategic tool to really advance their institution and to advise as strategy is developed, as projects are developed, to have technology at the side there, kind of working hand in hand to ensure that, this is not business as usual. You're now in the business of empowering people through this tool, that can really enhance what you've done before. So I really appreciate your point about this new perspective, which many institutions could learn from in terms of how to embrace technology. And a lot of leaders sometimes or other folks are hesitant, because there may be a lack of understanding or almost a fear factor sometimes. But that's why it's so important to have a good IT leader in your institution like Oxmera, in your case, to advise, counsel, and execute. Here's the results of our second poll. If your school had access to affordable and easy to manage technology, all of the above for mostly everybody, students, parents, faculty, and staff. Yes, that is often the case because technology is woven into the infrastructure of every institution, right? We can't do anything without technology, from teaching and learning to the administrative aspect of what institutions do. We have to have technology. And, it really affects all the constituents, the students, faculty, staff, alumni, vendors that we work with. So very important to really have a handle on that. And this perfect transition to Oxmera Mohammed, who is the Director of Technology for Nurul Iman School. And a little bit about Oxmera. She has over 18 years of experience in IT, delivering digital and business solutions. Currently, she serves as the Director of Technology at NUI and leads strategic planning for technology products and services, as well as managed service providers in support of furthering the school's mission. Before joining NUI, Oxmera was responsible for delivering major CRM solutions for Nokia and was a software engineer providing business solutions for Unilever. She has experience in education, manufacturing, telecommunications, logistics, and consulting. She holds her bachelor's degree in accounting from the Rutgers School of Business and a degree in information systems for New Jersey Institute of Technology and Rutgers University. Oxmara, you certainly are a Renaissance person, I gotta say. And, I see that a lot of times, surprisingly, in a lot of IT folks, it's not just all about IT. They really draw from many aspects of their experiences in life, and they study many different things, which really equips them well to be an IT person, because, as we said, IT is kind of woven into every aspect of everyone's institutions and organizations. So Oxmara, I'd like to hand it over to you to talk about, from your perspective, how you have dealt with technology and overcoming challenges.
Thank you, Carl. I would first like to thank Campus Consortium for inviting us to participate in this webinar and allowing me to speak about our experience at our school. As Ms. Layla stated, we are a pre-K to 12 school, which is a wide range of ages, and our learners' needs vary. For our IT department, the shift to online learning, if you wouldn't mind going to the slide, our shift to online learning and supporting remote workers was a huge challenge for us during the pandemic. Our school office staff had always worked on site and had in-person instruction. Our teachers and students shifted home, and our business and main office shifted to working remotely from home as well. Our community struggled with obtaining internet access. Folks in our community were using computers, laptops, iPads. We were providing, even some teachers were providing instruction through their phones. Students were using phones to participate in their classes. So that was a challenge. Training, I think, was next to that. Once we were able to get everyone online, having everyone be trained in what to do, what's the basic minimum that we need to be able to connect to our classes, and for teachers to be able to effectively teach to the students and take their attention, and so many challenges for the teachers, but they really did so well. This became a strain over time with the staff because we instantly had to learn the tools, decide on the tools, and then become experts, and then turn it around for our end users so that they can continue the process for educating the students. You go to the next slide. So instructional delivery, of course, was impacted. We had, like I said, mostly face-to-face learning in the building. And for the high school students, they would bring their own device to school, right? Because we're, college ready, trying to get them ready for their experiences moving forward when they leave our school. So we really didn't have Chromebooks or laptops or anything to provide the students for 8th grade and under. Most of our homework assignments are done on paper. Some online assignments, you could email your teacher, basically, if you're in middle school. So we changed over from having one student information system that was just basically for records and attendance to investing in a learning management platform, and then updating G Suite in support of the remote learning. We added Zoom, and then we worked with all of the textbook providers for their online programs. And they were caught in the midst of this as well, because some of their platforms really weren't up to speed as well. We're ready for this, for this new way of teaching. So we quickly realized we needed a system that can help us enhance the student experience, reduce the amount of passwords. We had spreadsheets and spreadsheets of just trying to keep logins and passwords and keep it all straight with regard to, whether you're a pre-K student or a 6th grade student, or if you, depending on, for our high school students, we still needed to move forward. They had to prepare for their college AP classes and, things like that. So there were various challenges. And we also wanted to protect them out on the internet, because that was not something that they had experienced before, especially for the younger, our younger students. The parents try to protect them from being online and things like that. So we wanted to make sure that we could safeguard their accounts from harm, whether they were, whether For instance, we have the office staff working at home, or if we were in person in the building, or the children were working remotely at home. And then if you go to the next slide, we also had an impact on our current project timelines. So pre-pandemic, our projects focused around our 3-year technology plan. This past year was basically slotted for our upgrades. Upgrades for desktop refreshes, our SAN, network refresh, virtualization infrastructure refresh. And in and of itself, those are huge projects to take on. And throw the website in there as well. And then on top of that was, of course, our focus had to be on the students and supporting our teachers. That's number one. So other things kind of had to shift, and budgets had to, move around, and personnel had to, some things we had to tweak. And before, where we had 20% of our tickets were, emergencies or perceived emergencies from our end users, later just became at least 50% of our time was just going through tickets, looking at password resets, looking at the system, what wasn't connecting. And if the teacher, if the teacher lost a student online, we're trying to help them in the background to get them back into the classroom. And the teacher's losing time, right? Because you only have maybe 40 minutes or a 1-hour block, or depending on if you have block scheduling for the older students. So there was a lot of pressure. And still, because we want to make sure that we have something in September in place for effective instruction as well, now that we've laid out this framework. So users had to rely on the IT help desk to reset a lot of passwords, and leading into the reason why we approached Campus Consortium was because we wanted to, we started applying for grants, looking for funding, and what we were finding for our group was a bulk of our day was just doing password resets and trying to, do these connections. So we had, in looking for the grant solutions, approached Campus Consortium. We really liked a lot of the solution offerings and its potential to partner with us to help us solve our problems, because we're a small group. And since then, we've received the grant. We're shifting towards improving the user experience, a centralized access framework. We were awarded the grant for the single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. And we are now looking at a faster problem resolution due to the self-service nature and the reduction of demand on our staff for the users, the end users, to be able to do this on their own. So basically it's one login and they can access all of their tools that they need come September. So this will increase efficiency for us and help us focus more time on data security and refining our systems. And spreadsheets, hopefully a huge reduction in our spreadsheets. So looking forward to that. So
Great.
Although it requires time and effort up front, our expectation is that the ROI later is in the form of better user experience and less demands on our staff. So while we are in the stages still of developing the platform, Campus Consortium has been so responsive, and we're very satisfied. So I wanted to mention that as well. So thank you, Carl.
Oxmara, thank you so much. Really good tie together between the strategy and leadership, and how you've executed that, and it's made a difference, and that is great. Last poll question, folks. Please answer this in the next 30 seconds so we can get your perspective. If your school had access to easy-to-use cloud-hosted technology and systems, what activities could be improved? Teaching and learning activities, administrative and operational activities, all of the above. Sometimes schools do invest in, say, the academic side, or the administrative side, depends on where they put the investments, but sometimes schools need both. So if you could just answer that would be great. I would like to begin to introduce our last speaker, who really plays both roles in his school district in terms of leadership and technology. So we talked about, especially K-12, a lot of employees have multiple roles when they work there, and Jorge Martinez is no exception. And Jorge Martinez is a seasoned professional with over 21 years of experience in customer service, information technology and security, networking, Cisco Systems Products, and VMware. He is currently working as Director of Instructional Information and Technology in Valley View Independent School District. He earned a Master of Education focused in Educational Instructional Technology from the University of Texas at Brownsville. And Jorge, I'd love you to just talk a little bit about your school, and then can you tell us from your perspective what challenges that you have had to meet in your responsibilities. Right before we get to you, here's the results of the last poll. Looks like all of the above for most people is teaching and administrative, but it looks like mostly teaching and learning activities is really where people are looking for also specifically help and support there. So thank you for answering that poll, much appreciated. We'll share the results of the poll after this, but let me hand it over to Jorge.
Thank you, Carl. Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Martinez. I've been here for 6 years at Valley View ISD. We're a small school district. We had 8 schools last year, but due to COVID, unfortunately, we had to close down one of our campuses. So now we're down to 7 schools. So we closed down 5th grade campus. All the students were moved to the elementary. So now we have pre-K through 5th at the 4 elementary schools. We were at 4,500 students, and of course, because of COVID and families moving and different circumstances, we are about 3,800 right now. That's kind of like what we're forecasting for this school year of 2021-2022. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to K-12, and it's just been a wild ride. You know, I've been working in education for 23 years. And all in K-12, and who would have known that schools would shut down their brick and mortar buildings and shift gears to remote learning. It was a big challenge for our teaching staff, especially our teachers that have been working for quite some time. It was completely new to them. So, you know, I applaud them for taking the challenge, and it was kind of like, you know, moving at 100 miles an hour trying to provide instruction for our kiddos. So it was a lot of work. I can definitely attest to that. Next slide, Carl. So limited funding in K-12. This is a huge challenge, right? This is everywhere throughout the U.S. You know, strong school level leadership is essential to the success of technology initiatives. To properly implement technology in our schools, education leaders and decision makers at all levels must have to understand technology used from the perspective of the school level leadership. You know, we're all in the business of closing the student achievement gap, leveraging technology, and one of the major challenges that most of the school districts face is limited funding. You know, school districts have a lot of needs. You know, you're talking technology is just one of the main components for a school district. And now more than ever, especially during COVID last year, you know, the technology budget, you know, has been shrinking because priorities shift. You know, for example, in our school district, our technology budget has been decreasing over the past 3 years due to other priority projects. But you know, luckily, we were investing monies early in the game. So I must say that we were kind of like, as far as access for our students, we were prepared. We didn't have that. We weren't. We were at 80% actually on being one-to-one. So luckily, we were ready for that. And then we also took advantage of other federal and state funds that were available for us. We did apply for the Operation Connectivity Fund here in the state of Texas through Texas Education Agency. And so we received funding for 600 iPads for the lower grade levels from pre-K through kinder. So our program model here for us is pre-K and kinder have iPads, 1st grade and up have Google Chromebooks. Part of this funding that we received through the Texas Education Agency also included 350 teacher laptops and 1,500 MiFis for our students. So we did survey our students, and so we were like, out of the 4,300 students that we had last year, we were like 1,200 or so students were lacking broadband access at home. So that's why the 1,500 number came about. So luckily, you know, these grants were available to us, and they really helped out. And so now our district is at a one-to-one device for every student. So we're glad and super, thankful for the funds that we received, or else we would have been plan B and trying to come up with another solution to rotate the existing devices that we had. But yeah, it's imperative to roll out a 5-year technology plan and forecast the replacement cost, because it's one thing that you do get grants, you do receive these monies, but you also have to think forward. We need to start allocating funding right now, because in 4 or 5 years, these devices are going to be obsolete. So it's very kind of imperative that we forecast this and get the leadership involved to start planning the funding sources, whether it's going to be operating budget or capital budget. Next slide. Professional development and education. This is huge. This is one component, regardless of how many devices and what technology you have out there. If we don't invest in professional development, you're not going to have the teacher buy-in. That's just the way it is, right? And the thing is that you don't want to push technology out there in the classroom if it's not a priority to our teachers. So that's huge. You have to have a solid district leadership. It's essential for the school to be successful. All levels of district leadership are important, individually and collectively, including school board, superintendents, assistant superintendents for curriculum, instruction, technology, finance, and operations. All these departments interoperate in some form of way. So you have to get everybody involved. However, the principal at the end of the day is the primary influence for professional development within the school. They know their audience, they know their teachers, so they know where the learning gaps are when it comes to technology. The quality of a principal's leadership has a major impact on education technology usage, leading to improved student outcomes. The school leaders play a very important role in ensuring quality instruction, professional learning, and student achievement. If a school principal expects students and teachers to use the technology tools frequently, they will do so. Principals have to model the technology in order for your teachers to be able to adapt to it and be able to use it more. Student motivation and engagement increases when students and teachers have consistent access to digital learning tools, and school level leaders establish those access expectations for students. And then as we manage the transition from a predominantly printed-based classroom to digital learning environments, we have the opportunity to truly appreciate the benefits, right, of personalized learning, engaging and inspiring the students everywhere. What we have learned is that all the teachers and the leadership in the schools with great professional development, amazing things could happen, but just handing out the technology devices to the teacher is not going to do it. And that's really what happened during COVID. It's unfortunate that, our teachers were accustomed to brick and mortar buildings, in-person instruction, but it's very different when keeping the students engaged from home. And some students travel. We're about 10 miles away from the border. So we had some of our families and students that traveled to Mexico, and so they had challenges too. We had to be swapping out MiFis because of the international plans. And there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts that we have to kind of like prepare for. But really the key was getting our teachers trained. Luckily, we have been planning this for the past 3 years. All our digital curriculum have been transferred to online, to digital. So our platform here is Google Apps for Education. So we started working with our curriculum folks, our assistant superintendents, and then during the past 3 years over the summer, all the curriculum was transpired to digital, from paper books, everything got digitized. And so it was just a matter of transitioning to the online platforms that we have and getting the teachers accustomed to that. So that kind of like, there was a couple of hiccups at the beginning. Once we got everybody on board, I think that worked out very well. So the support tickets and the support calls and the frustrations, kind of like, they started not diminishing, but they started kind of like slowing down. But at first it was chaos. It was a lot of questions going back and forth. So principals must lead the change management that is required to transform our school. Principals must also lead in the use of data to inform instruction, and they must champion the movement from teacher-led to student-centered instruction. So this is something that has to be evident, for our teachers. Let's see here. I think I was going through my the notes. So it is essential to build a collaborative partnership with principals to increase program adoptions and the teacher buy-in. That is something huge, or else it's not gonna, regardless of the technology they have in place, it's not gonna go as planned. Next slide, Carl. Program sustainability. School districts invest a huge amount of money in instructional programs and digital curriculum, but it's critical that we cross-train our staff to be subject matter experts. Think of it as, kind of like train the trainer model. So this is very critical for software applications, right? Having program champions at the campus level will increase usage and maximize all the program features that are included. Are we using 90% of the program with all-inclusive features? Where do we stand? These are all relevant questions that will assist the program adoption and yearly renewals. So we have to have that data that illustrates and shows, the progress gains with these particular software, instructional software, because there's a lot of them out there. And I think we did get a huge increase from our teachers because of COVID, and they were learning remotely. There was a handful of requests coming in, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, and so forth. But you have a hodgepodge of different systems that some of them will be overlapping. So we just have to be mindful of that and make sure that we do our due diligence and invest on the ones that are must needed. Technology integration and usage. And here in the state of Texas, the teacher appraisal system is called T-Test. And many of the objectives is to ensure integration of appropriate technology throughout all the curriculum and instruction. The technology integration has to be evident in the classroom during the formal evaluation by the campus administrators in order to get an exemplary rating and meeting the goal. With technology integration throughout the instructional program, systems will become more effective and student achievement will flourish. Having data to illustrate the effectiveness of the technology programs is beneficial to upper leadership to continue expanding the program adoptions and measure the success. So this is huge too as well. Before the T-Test in the state of Texas, there was another professional development program called PDAS. And so very different. It was created back in 1997. It got replaced with T-Test in 2008, somewhere around there. And so what that did is reshuffled everything in the sense that the objectives and the goals all have to do with technology, because that's what it's involved in a day-to-day instruction for a teacher. So that has to be evident in there. So luckily, the state of Texas has provided funding for that and some measures on the appraisal system. Automation processes. We implemented a solution to automate account provisioning and lifecycle processes when I started working here at Valley View ISD about 6 years ago. Before that, we had manual management. We had the IT team would be addressing all these needs. Everything was manual, so it did take a lot of time. The district was investing too much time in human capital and other technical in the technical team, to create the accounts versus maximizing their talent and utilizing them for things that have high visibility and high impact at the district level. So we did the analysis and we did the math and their hourly daily rate, and there was too much money going down the drain for just account provisioning. So it wasn't cost effective for us. So we did partner with a company for, Tools Forever. And so it was very cost effective for us. We've been running it for, like I said, 6 years. It was a lot of ingoing pre-work done, but we ended up setting and configuring our HR application as the authority system for staff and our student information system, SIS, for our students as well. So our system is configured to go out there and check every hour for new employees or no longer employed. And the same thing for students, for students that move from one campus to another or they move out within the hour, our systems automate that. So the accounts get disabled, computer accounts, Google accounts, everything gets disabled. Administration, depending on what campus you're in, they get notified. So that's very effective. That we did get good feedback and good input from our campus principals and administration on that. So they really like that. Also, implementing a single sign-on to any new program application will simplify the account provisioning for staff and student accounts. Teachers do not have the time of the day to be manually creating accounts for any new instructional program. As it is, they have a lot on their plate. Instead, teachers should really invest their time and efforts in the actual use of the program. You know, here at Valley ISD, we implemented this also about 5 years ago, and we partnered with Clever. It's an SSO solution that we have many applications that are there and they're fully rostered. And during any new program evaluation processes that we have internally here with our team, we ask the vendors, are you Clever partner? Basically, if they are, it'll simplify the rostering for our staff and students. Clever is completely free for schools and the cost is offset to the partner vendors. So for us, we don't pay anything. You know, the partner vendors are the ones that are paying for that service. Over the years, they've been adding a lot of vendors in there to make the applications fully rostered. So that's great. Some of the benefits is Clever badges for the lower grade levels to automatically log in instead of typing in their login information. So it's just like an ID Clever badge. They put it in front of the camera, whether it's an iPad or a Chromebook, they automatically log in. So that really helped us, especially during COVID. We had a bunch of parents calling us. We had to polish our Spanish skills with our families. So you got families and students calling us, I can't log in. So we had to email them or email the student the Clever badge because they lost it and stuff like that. But it really helped out, especially for the lower grade levels. Also the SSO for teachers, they're leveraging the same login for their Google email and the password that they use. Passwords expire every 90 days. Our system notifies them, teachers change it. That's the same password that they're going to be using for these systems as well. And then another feature about this program, Clever, is school leaders have access to customize their portal landing page for individual schools. So they have something to communicate with the families and the students. They have the ability to do that. So very, very helpful. Having the automation processes in place will definitely help with program sustainability in the long run. And that's something that has to be put in place just to make sure that you sustain those. The other one is vendor partnerships. You know, this is the sustainability of these programs really relies on building the partnership with vendors to avoid any disruption and teacher frustrations. You want to work with vendors that are not just selling a product, they're offering you long-term guidance, the services and the support that acts as or supplements your in-house technology expertise. You know, many vendors overpromise and some only want to do a one-time sale. This makes it very difficult, especially if your staff is already accustomed to the program, right? You implement a new program, but then again, the R&D for that specific vendor is not there, right? So they're not investing the new feature enhancements and things like that for that new specific program. So it's a lot of moving parts when it comes to vendor partnerships, but it's good to start early and start making a list of the ones that are really, really doing an impact at your schools. And I'll pass it over to you, Carl.
Jorge, thank you so much. Great points. And I see a lot of similarity, you know, in some of your issues and challenges you're trying to overcome. And I think the one item that really stands out is that importance of really ensuring that the leadership of your institutions and systems are in sync with the technology leaders. Very, very important for that continuity to be there. And that has just been so emphasized. Both of you have said that both your institutions are saying that pandemic has really accelerated the dependency on technology and hopefully shown the importance of that. And again, I say that this is not a K-12 specific issue. This is across all of education. I've seen a lot of higher education where similar issues where there is a disconnect, and how much better could it be if technology was, you know, kind of really connected to the top layers of leadership and included in the whole strategic and planning of the institution. Another thing that you said, Jorge, was the, you know, number of, you know, you need to have a strategy, 5-year plan as you do. I had a 3-year plan where I was, but you have to turn over that equipment, right? You have to upgrade because that's one thing, it's changing. And so this is so uniquely different than building a building, right? That or putting in some types of infrastructure that last for 20 years. The technology is always changing, advancing. And so as a result, that impacts the teaching and learning too. So there's can be impacts on that. And that's why we need to catch up, as both of you said, we really need to make sure that we are, adjusting to the technology to empower the teachers and to give students more or allow them to do more than what they've been able to do before. It really changes the face of education. And then it's also the administration part where we have to really manage people now and their roles and their accounts and their accesses, their content and their data. And then last but not least, big one, of course, is, and it's growing in importance every day, security. Of course, we're all worried about security. So many IT shops try to incorporate security. Some are lucky enough to have a chief information security officer or someone dedicated to security, but that's definitely very important as we move more online, not just our curriculum, but the identities of our students, parents, faculty, staff, alumni, anybody we deal with as educators. So I have to say, panel, you guys were all fantastic. I really appreciate all your insight, you relating all your experiences, all the challenges that you've met and how that you've gone about trying to overcome those, and that into the future, your institutions will be well equipped with leaders like you at the helm, because I know, although we don't really know what the next year will hold for us in terms of the pandemic and other issues, we do know that you'll be helping your institutions meet those challenges. So again, I really thank you for your contributions today, the time that you've spent preparing for this EdTalk webinar. And what we're going to do, since we're running a bit late, we're going to collect to get up all the questions, and we will forward them to the panel for answers and send those out. We will send this presentation out to all the attendees that have been here today. And what I would like to say also is that we do have assistance and support of all kinds. And this is about affordability and expertise, which can be elusive to smaller or medium-sized institutions that really need the help. And Campus Consortium is here to help with you network with other schools and also offer advice and support if you're a member. And if you're not, become a member. It's very easy. But we also have a couple of grant programs that are available out there also that really have helped some K-12s, but also higher eds as well. So we welcome any inquiries, love to talk to you about it and see how we can support and help you as your institution. Thanks so much to this wonderful panel today. I really appreciate your time. I hope that you'll be back again to talk about what has transpired over the next 6 months to a year and report back out to our community. So thank you so much for your contributions today. And thank you to everyone who's attended this EdTalk webinar today. We'll see you again next time. Take care.